Hello and welcome to the podcast that isn't involved in an entertaining 2-2 draw against Sweden, but is instead eking out a 1-0 win away in Kazakhstan. It's the big man up top.
Yes, it is, Ed. Happy international break.
Yeah, is it?
Oh, no.
I mean, we'll sort of get onto it a bit, but
no one wants it.
It does feel very early. Is it?
Yeah.
Is it early than usual?
No, it's the same every year.
And do we have this discussion every year?
We do.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's 3 weeks of good domestic football.
The season's really, getting into gear.
And then we're just hit with this beige weekend. It's awful.
Well, we're going to talk about the international break. We're going to talk about some of the goals, some of the talking points of this past weekend. But we're also going to talk about parenting, Joe, aren't we?
Yes, we are. 50% of us are parents, so it made sense.
It's a bit random, but obviously, this is really a time of year when you think about the children, don't you? They're going back to school. It's a big talking point.
The traffic's worse. That's my reflection.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to be talking about what it means to not just be a parent, but actually what it means to encourage young people as well. But first of all, we've had a little bit of correspondence, Joe.
An email.
We have. This one came in from Ian, who said, "Hey guys, enjoyed the last 2 shows. I'm not sure if that means he's been listening for longer and not enjoyed."
About 45 episodes in.
Yeah. Well,
the last 2 have been all right.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Ian is a recent new listener. That's what I'm hoping anyway.
Yeah.
He says refreshing content, good stuff, and we're just very grateful for that lovely bit of feedback. So thank you, Ian. But he also says, "I've been a Christian almost as long as I've supported Palace home and away."
Wow.
We love an away supporter as well.
Yes.
And also, I'm a big FPL fan. And he was asking for the league code, and he says, "I'll be pleased to join, although I've had a shocking start. Cheers, Ian." So I thought this would be a good opportunity to say thank you to Ian.
Thanks, Ian.
And thank you to everybody else who gets in touch. But also just to sort of, again, reiterate the FPL league that we've got. We're not going to talk about it this week because
nothing's happened.
Because nothing's happened, and I'm still near the bottom. But we will put the details of the FPL League in the description. So make sure you go and check out the description on this episode for the details of how you can join the Big Man Up Top Premiership.
Please join us. Well, Ed, we are about to move on to our quiz section. But before we do that, I think we should tease what's coming on later in the episode. We have a chat with a professional footballer.
A real one.
A real-life professional footballer. These are quite hard to come by, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, because actually, footballers, they've obviously got a lot going on. They're notoriously quite busy training and playing matches and all that sort of stuff. But also, they've got people around them. They're quite hard to get hold of. So actually getting a footballer who is playing in the game right now can be quite tricky. But we've got an interview with a real life footballer,
an international one at that.
An international footballer as well. And what's funny is I'll tell you a little bit later on in the episode about how the interview came about. And it was a bit of a random chance meeting, but very, very grateful as well for it.
Well, before we get onto that, shall we do a quiz?
Let's do a quiz, Joe.
Every week we quiz each other about a footballer who shares their first name with a book in the Bible.
Or as we call them, a Bible baller.
A Bible baller. This week I am quizzing you quite a simple question.
Okay. I gave you a lot of help last week, so I'm hoping you'll return the favour and be generous to me too.
I was very grateful for that. Are you ready for your question? Which of these Bible ballers has more Champions League goals? Joshua Kimmich, Jude Bellingham.
Just the 2?
Just the 2.
Oh, goodness me.
Who scored more?
Jude Bellingham, I think, feels like the name.
Yeah.
That's the one that's jumping out at me. But then also, you've got a sneaky side to you, Joe. Is it a bluff? Is it a double bluff? Who knows?
You've got to think about longevity in this sport as well, don't you?
Exactly.
He's been around, 30-year-old Joshua Kimmich.
Can I have a bit of time to think about it, Joe?
Yeah, all right then. Only a little bit, though.
So before we move on to the actual football that happened, all of that lovely international football that happened, have you seen the stuff with Owen and Rooney recently?
I have. The thing is, Ed, it's the international break.
Yeah.
we're all just trying to get content.
Us included.
That's all this is. Everything is an opportunity for content, and this is a great example of it. Why don't you talk us through what has happened?
Well, I don't quite know what's happened at all. There seemed to be a post from the Match of the Day social media account, so obviously ran by BBC Sport, sort of inquiring about, who out of Wayne Rooney and Michael Owen was the better player.
At the age of 17.
At the age of 17 specifically.
Is the key point here.
Yeah, two young players, obviously they both burst onto the league and world stage, at that young age. Very, very exciting. And just to start a bit of a debate and see what happened. And Michael Owen weighed in, didn't he?
He did. Come on, Michael.
What did he say?
Well, he said, at 17, I scored 18 Premier League goals, brackets, winning the Golden Boot.
The brackets are very important there.
Injuries hindered me from then on while he sustained his level. Therefore, he'll go down as a better player than me. But at 17, please, ...
Yeah, there is something to say here about why Michael Owen has felt the need to jump in here. I don't want to say he's not sort of universally liked, but he has been the sort of the butt of a lot of jokes, maybe from supporters, from other pundits.
Yeah, I think he's got a bit of a reputation for not being the most popular. It's often said about him that he's played for so many clubs and not necessarily seen as a legend at any of them.
Do we think, does this maybe, I'm trying to be an armchair psychiatrist here, which is very dangerous, but does this maybe speak to a bit of Owen feeling like he's not had his dues? Because, let's be honest, I mean, he's right in many of those respects. He is a Ballon d'Or winner, and not many English players can say that. He was the outstanding talent in the world for a time, and maybe he feels like he's not getting the respect that he deserves.
I also think though there's a desire to stay relevant in the modern game,
and Rooney ended up responding eventually with, I think, sort of a very good PR comment. In a nutshell, he sort of said, I just don't think it's particularly good to compare the two of us. We're both very different players. And he actually made a lovely comment about when he was growing up, he was the one in the playground trying to be Michael Owen, and which I thought was nice and showed a great deal of respect to Michael Owen. So definitely Rooney came out of this looking better.
I think so, and I think he's absolutely right. We can enjoy them both.
Yeah,
we don't have to choose one.
We don't have to pick one, you know. And
you can have your crumble and your ice cream.
So the bad people here, as the Match of the Day social media account, for trying to start fights. We don't want to.
Don't need it.
No.
Shall we talk about the main event?
Yeah, what was that?
Just trying to work that out, actually. I guess maybe the England game. Should we talk about that?
Probably. They weren't inspiring, were they? 2-0 win against Andorra, but, not great.
Like you say, not the most inspiring. I think Tuchel has a lot of people to win over already. There's been a lot of chat about should we have a non-English manager in charge of our England team. So he's already started off not having the full support, I'd say, of the England fan base, and to back that up, his style of football isn't the most entertaining, is it?
What I would say is, I think it's way too early to assess. I mean, you just look at the way. I mean, okay, I know it's Andorra, right, and we do need to preface everything with "but it's Andorra."
Sure,
but they have still come to do a particular job against England. They have made sure that they're there to frustrate them. And it is true that it is always harder to play against a team that is tight, compact, marks well, all that sort of stuff, which are things that a lower ability team can do. With good organisation, they can frustrate bigger teams. They've gone out to do that. And so in the end, England have kind of just ground out a bit of an uninspiring win. I just think it just doesn't show us anything. We could play France next week and see a really expansive England side, and we just sort of won't know until we get to the World Cup, really, is my sort of thought, or at least until we play a better side.
Yeah, and you have to remember that he's filled his team with Arsenal players who famously aren't that bothered about scoring goals.
Famously. He does want to bring the long throws back, though, doesn't he?
I saw that. He's a big fan.
Which is very exciting.
He's a big fan of the long throws. We're all thrilled about that. What I would say, though, is these kind of teams are going to be 90% of the teams England play up until it gets serious in the World Cup. We've got 3 international breaks to go till the World Cup, and then we need to know what we're doing. And you are going to come up against these teams that play the low block that are going to frustrate. And England need to find a way to get past that. They had a lot of players missing in this game as well. They didn't have Cole Palmer. They didn't have Jude Bellingham.
No Saka
as well. I think it's far too early to care about how they're playing. They're winning games, which is all that matters.
I think at this stage, definitely. One positive was Elliot Anderson in the midfield, wasn't it?
That third midfield spot has been kind of the conversation been going on for a few years now. Feels like Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham are nailed on, but he wants to play Declan Rice in that number 8 role, so kind of going forward a bit more box to box than maybe he's used to playing at Arsenal. So that third spot has kind of been up in the air. He tried Trent there. Gareth Southgate tried Trent there in the Euros. That didn't work. Tried Conor Gallagher, that worked a bit. Tried Kobbie Mainoo. So there's always kind of this rotation of who is that third midfielder going to be. I think a lot of fans are crying out for Adam Wharton to have a go. Sadly, he was injured for this game. Otherwise, I think he would have had a go. But Elliot Anderson has started the season really well. Looked really good at Forest, playing with Gibbs-White. And I thought he played really well in this game.
Let's have a look at the other home nations. Wales getting a 1-0 away win at Kazakhstan. Scotland with a huge result against Denmark.
Massive
0-0 away point. But, when you're looking at, Denmark away being their most difficult fixture, huge result for them.
This is absolutely it. You have to look, when you're a team that is maybe less nailed on to qualify, which you have to say the other home nations are less likely to.
It's much more up in the air, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's much more difficult for them to do that. You have to look at the fixture that is going to cause you the most problems. So for Scotland, it's this Denmark away. For England, it's away at Serbia. It's probably their toughest game. Northern Ireland, they played at Germany. And you have to look at that game and think, if we can get something from that game, we stand a chance. And that's what they've done. It's not the most stylish performance. They would have loved a win, obviously, but a 0-0 draw away at Denmark is nothing to be sniffed at.
And speaking of Northern Ireland, who've just played Germany, a defeat, and yet they still rankled the Germans, didn't they?
They've annoyed the Germans, Ed, with their as
and
Joshua,
that's almost as good as a win, isn't it? At the end of the day,
from what I saw, they were quite pragmatic. I think the German squad and the manager weren't too keen on their long ball style of play, which I watched this game, Ed. Germany had 6'6" striker Nick Voltemade, who's just signed for Newcastle, up front, and they were playing long balls as well, Ed.
This very much sounds like Arsene Wenger when Arsenal used to play Stoke all those years ago. You are drawn against a team and they play in a specific way, and if you can't figure that out, then that's not on the other team playing bad football. It's it's just winning an effective football.
It's an exciting squad, that Northern Irish team. So maybe this World Cup will come a bit too soon, but I think the future's quite exciting for them.
So just looking at the other World Cup qualifiers that we've seen over this weekend, one of the things that really stands out is the amount of drubbings, Joe. So very quickly going through the list, Belgium beating Liechtenstein 6-0. I mean, that's actually quite a close result, I suppose, in the grand scheme of things. Greece beating Belarus 5-1, Iceland beating Azerbaijan 5-0, Italy beating Estonia 5-0, Portugal beating Armenia 5-0, Bosnia and Herzegovina beating San Marino 6-0, Spain winning 6-0 against Turkey, North Macedonia winning 5-0 against Liechtenstein, Belgium winning 6-0 against Kazakhstan. Lots of 5 and 6-0s there.
It just feels a bit pointless,
well,
doesn't it?
That's what I was going to say. Like, is there sort of a point now where we've kind of got this two-tiered system where there are just teams that are out there to get battered?
Whisper it quietly, Ed, but I think this is why a tournament like the Nations League is actually gathering some popularity.
Oh, come on.
But it is because the whole point of the Nations League is that you're pitching teams against other nations of a similar ability. You have promotion, you have relegation, and it's more interesting than sitting down to watch
San Marino get battered.
Yeah, exactly. Because we know what happens. Whereas, I don't know. All I'm saying is more Nations League. I think we can all agree.
Can we? Let's move on. It was the start of the WSL season this weekend, wasn't it, Joe?
It was, fresh off a very exciting and successful summer for the English women's team. The WSL started again, and some big results.
What were the headlines, Joe?
Notably, Everton beat Liverpool 4-1.
Massive.
At Anfield. A debut for their new signing, Ornella Vignola. She scored a hat-trick at Anfield, so a great start for Everton. Arsenal also came from behind to beat London City Lionesses this weekend, who are quite an interesting team. They're the first fully independent team to compete in the WSL because they got promoted last season. They broke away from Millwall in 2019. So I think that's quite exciting, actually.
Yeah, because very much all of the other sides in the WSL have kind of the younger sisters of the men's team, at Man United or Chelsea or whatever. So this is exciting to see this team. London City, I'm not a huge fan of the name, Joe. It sounds like a Pro Evo team, but we like what they're doing and what they stand for, so that's fascinating. It's good to see, again, some of the Lionesses, as in the England's Lionesses, returning to, getting the ball rolling straight away in form. Michelle Agumang had a great game for Brighton against Villa, and former Lioness Rachel Daly hit the bar in that game as well. Good to see the England players, getting off with a bang, I suppose.
Back at it. I'm actually going to Villa Liverpool in a few weeks at Villa Park, the WSL game, so I'm very excited for that.
Obviously, it's been an international break, so limited on football stories, really, as you can tell by all the Owen Rooney nonsense. And so, I just thought it would be good for us to sort of just expand a little bit in terms of what we talk about. And this is a really important time of year for parents, isn't it, Joe? Kids are going back to school. They're all rejoicing. Parents are all absolutely delighted that their kids are going back to school. But, it's an emotional time.
Has it been a difficult week in the Jervis household?
Well, not difficult, but we've got one child that's really excited about going back to school, and she doesn't even say goodbye when the bell goes. She just runs off, and you're like, okay, see you later. And then we've got another child who is finding it more difficult, a bit more emotional, a bit more sensitive, Sure. And so you've got to balance all that stuff, and you've got to balance kids getting back into routine. And actually, I just thought it'd be good for us to have a chat, not just about parents and kids, but actually just about young people. Like, whether we're parents or not, we all have young people in our lives that we have an influence on. It could be a family member, it could be young people in our church communities, could be, children of friends. And actually, the Bible speaks a lot about how we can have an impact on young people that are around us in our world. And I managed to get in touch with a gentleman called Wes Harding. What a lovely guy he is. Now, he is the dad of Wes Harding, who plays for Milwall. The exciting thing, Joe, is I actually got to chat to Wes as well as part of this conversation. So I get to chat with both Ian and Wes Harding about what it was like growing up in the Harding household.
Ian Harding, how are you doing today?
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Tell us about family life and what things were like for your kids, growing up.
We lived in a normal household, myself and my wife, and still do. Just really living the life like everybody else, really. We both come from big families. We just did the best we could. They went through normal state school, no private school, anything like that. They did what they did, and to come out the other end, being, successful people, successful contributors to society. Never got involved in anything about the law, the police, or anything like that at all. And really continuing the next, you could say, taking on our legacy, really. I think the big thing is respecting our elders, respecting our parents, learning off each other, respecting each other, loving one another, which is a big thing.
What part did faith have to play in the family home?
Well, it wasn't to begin with, because I learned off my dad back in the 60s and 70s. I think from a Jamaican parentage, we weren't deep into that faith at all. We believed in Jesus, but we never focused on him. My daughter was first to follow Jesus and got baptized a long time before I did. I then made the decision to follow Jesus through really the family that around me, including my sister, who was walking very, very closely with the Lord. But at the same time, I still wasn't following the Lord in when I was growing up my boy, because I think there's a relationship with me and Wes, is tight, still is tight, encouraging him to get to where he is now. And it was tough, very tough, but he worked hard. I didn't have to push him that much at all. He just did what he needed to do. And it was just great. It was great to see him to get the success that he wanted. It was then later, when we're both now in Christ, that we gave our lives. A lot later. And now we're both moving and living and working for Jesus.
I want to just get a sense of what Wes was like as a young footballer. What sort of signs did you see where you thought, oh, actually, this is more than just a hobby. He's actually got some real talent here.
He told me, he said, and he was about 8 years old. He says, Dad, I want to be a professional footballer. So I said to him, okay, let's see what we can do. Got him in local teams, and he just did what he needed to do. Yes, I encourage him. I'm at the touchline. I'm watching him and stuff like that, and doing what he needed to do. He was a striker at 7, 8 years old, something like that, and he started putting in goals. And it was his determination, his focus that he did. Yes, there's everything now again. I wasn't putting pressure on him like, come on, you could have done that. Because in my opinion, that would push a child away from what he wants to do. It was him that decided, I want to be a professional footballer and I'm going to work hard, put the work in. And I drove him all over the place. And academies started looking at him. It didn't bother him. He was just working hard to do what he needed to do. And that's how he started as a young man, growing up from 8 to about 15. And that's how he developed into the young man he was then.
I think every footballer must go through some incredible highs and also some incredibly difficult moments when things don't work out at clubs or whatever that is. How were you able to be there for Wes in that moment?
I always said to him, I was encouraging him to keep his head high, no matter what happens on the pitch. He was at Leicester first, in my hometown. He was there for 6 weeks, stretched out to double that, and they still didn't have him in. Then I was at 11 years old, and he was gutted. But at the same time, a scout from Coventry was watching him, and he lives in Leicester. So he was watching him. Of course, when they released him on the Wednesday night from Leicester, and he went up to his room, he was crying and all sorts. I rang the guy, Mick, at Coventry, said, yeah, okay, bring him on Friday. And that was it. Took him down Friday, and he was brilliant. And they signed him up as well, straight away. And he was there for 2 years, at 11 to 14, became the top scorer. The record in scoring most goals as a scorer for Coventry. And there's nothing again. But I think he became stronger then, because it disappointed him, but it became stronger. But then he left for about 3 or 4 months, went into a local team, and then signed on for Villa. He changed from a striker to a defender at Villa. So I thought, okay. Oh, I didn't say to him, no, you don't give him a striker. Are you kidding me? And I said to him, well, you carry on. He'd just been released from Aston Villa, and Birmingham picked him up, and he went for a trial there. This was one of the worst, rainiest nights I've ever been to go and watch him play. And I took him there. They're playing him in blue, as usual, the academy at 16. He turns up in yellow, bright yellow, like a goalkeeper. You know what I mean? So I said, you better start talking. And I could hear him talking. Yeah, to me. Yeah, come on. All this sort of stuff. And when we finished, they took him on, and the coach was saying, but he can talk, can't he? It can really talk, can't it? I said, yes. Because I said to him, the two loudest voices on that pitch, first of all, is going to be the coach, and you're the second loudest on the pitch. And you need to, and I said, even if you're losing 5, 6, 7-0, it doesn't matter. You carry on and keep that head up and keep working. And each time he just grew and became more mature. Coaches, staff, other players started liking him because of his approach as a young player, as a young man. Whether it's anything to do with God, I think it was now. When I look back, I think it's the Holy Spirit now guiding him, showing him to be humble at all times. And that's the biggest thing. And I think he then started looking at the Bible, reading the Word. I didn't even know that he was reading about the Lord. I didn't even know. I didn't have a clue about him learning and reading and stuff like that about the Lord, because he'd moved away now. And he's now living in lodgings and stuff in Birmingham and just getting on with the job of being a professional footballer. He got signed on by Birmingham City. It was great to see him playing. It was absolutely brilliant. And just to see and encourage. But he really did it all himself.
I'd love you to tell me about a highlight or two, like a moment where you've been really proud of the player he is, but also the man he's become as well.
It was at Birmingham. He did his first assist. So it was not actually scoring the goal, but just being there and doing what he needed to do and using this. So that particular moment, very proud of him, where he skated down the right side and put it across for the striker when he was at Birmingham. It was like the last game of the season. They had to win the game. It was against a team that were 20-odd games or something like that, unbeaten. And they had to win the game in order to stay up in the championship. And they won it. They won 3-1. But it started from the first goal, where Wes was there and put that assist across, and it went in. And we went absolutely mad. Absolutely mad in excitement. I think the other one is when he got into the Papa John Trophy final. He was playing for Rotherham at the time. And when he came, he didn't play the full game. He came on later, about 70th minute, as a sub. And it looked like he just changed the game. They were 2-0 down. They scored 2 goals to take into extra time as 2 each. And then they went on to win it. And then to see them go up this upstairs at Wembley and receive the trophy, it's just immense. I've never been to Wembley in my life, but to see him go up there, very, very proud of him. I've never dreamed that he would ever be there. You know what I mean? And I think this is what God has done for him. And for him now to stand next to me and his mum in 2016 to be baptized was just another proud moment again. You know what I mean? I never pushed him to follow the Lord. I didn't even encourage him as such. He went to look for himself. He did all the reading and the research and reading the Word, and then made that decision. And it was just one of the proudest moments for myself and my wife, for him to be standing here. And it's like a last minute thing. And it was just absolutely momentous. So to see him to grow from where he is, the little boy, toddler, to where he is now, a grown man, married as well. It's just fantastic. And I'm so glad.
Wes.
Oh, wow. Look at this. How you doing, Ed?
I'm great. How are you doing, Wes?
Yeah. Fine, thanks.
Well, I've just been chatting to your dad about what it was like, I suppose, being your dad and seeing you grow and all that sort of stuff. But just tell me a little bit, what do you remember sort of family life being like when you were younger?
I had a fun upbringing. I say to people, even in the faith, like I see a lot of people have like a sudden moment where everything's been bad and that's what drew them to the Lord. I had a very comfortable upbringing, in all honesty. And I'm grateful to my dad and my mom and just like family, my big sister, for giving me the best platform to like go on and do well.
What was your dad like when you were a young player? What was he like as that sort of parent on the touchline, so to speak?
he was quite stern. I see over the years he's got softer and softer. It's almost as if the Bible says, train up a child in the way they should go, and when they're old, they won't depart from it. And he was very stern in terms of, well, I wouldn't say too strict, but I had my boundaries. And as I said, now I'm older, he's a lot more free and comfortable with me doing whatever I want to do. But very early on, yeah, it was quite stern, but in a good way. There was always the loving side as well. I think him and Mum did balance it quite well. In regards to football, Dad took me literally everywhere, every club, up and down the motorway.
You've spoken about faith as well. Like, what has faith in Jesus done for you during your professional career as an adult?
I'd say first, he just taught me a lot. I used to play with quite a lot of anxiety and fear of wanting to play well, wanting to do well. But I see over time, as I've got closer to the Lord, I still get match day nerves every now and then, but there's a lot more confidence and there's a lot less fear of the unknown, fear of what might happen. I've seen how my football career and knowing the Lord has been quite parallel. When I first came to know the Lord was when I'd say I first started off first team wise in the senior squad. So that's also something that's interesting that I look back on and realize, okay, it was sort of the same time. So yeah, I think it's brought a lot of peace.
I've just got one more question for you, Wes. Tell me about your hopes, your dreams for the future.
I just want to grow in the faith. I want to be a man who truly knows the Lord, and like I say about David, a man after God's own heart. That's who I want to be. I want people to look at me and be able to say that. Football wise, I want to succeed. I want to enjoy myself, get to play in the Premier League. I've been able to play for Jamaica by God's grace. I'd love to play for Jamaica at the World Cup next year. I want to enjoy my career and play more games. But we'll see, man. We'll see what the Lord has in store.
Great to hear that from Ian Harding and Wes Harding. A surprise Wes Harding.
It's surprise Wes Harding. I tell you what, I'm absolutely delighted about it.
You were buzzing when you came away from that. And I think we're going to dive into your story a little bit in a second. But it is important here, as you mentioned before, that this doesn't just apply to parenting. This applies to any young person in our lives. And also I think it can apply to our friends, particularly when you're talking about dreams, what you want to achieve, that kind of thing. I think there's conversations here about encouraging our friends as well to achieve things and how you help them deal with disappointment, which we'll come on to in a second. But Ed, you have some real life experience of this as well, don't you?
So I've spoken about it a few times, but I have 2 young daughters, the youngest of which hates football and has told me that she hates football just like mummy, apparently, which is
That's
fine. It's fine. She's a dancer.
Okay,
you crack on with that. But my eldest daughter loves football. And I help with her, with her girls' team. I'm an assistant coach there. I actually got my tracksuit just the other day, which is very exciting.
Oh, that's
so
good.
it feels
got
very
initials on
I
the
know, but I might just put them on. I might write them on. But yeah, so it's been a real journey for me to see her going through that of exploring, as a young kid about wanting to play a sport that you love and wanting to do well in it. But also the sort of balancing act of not pushing them too far. It's really difficult.
We've chatted before, particularly around the girls' game, about the challenges that girls' football faces. What were your initial thoughts when your daughter expressed an interest to play football?
I was delighted because I think, yes, there are issues in the game. There are issues at grassroots level. I wasn't aware of the issues in the girls' game at that grassroots at that point. So no, I was just delighted that she wanted to play. But to be honest, as a parent, you're delighted about anything that your kid shows an interest in. Whether it's science or music or whatever it is. You're so happy that they've found their thing that you just want to encourage that in in whatever way. I wouldn't be coaching, an under 11 girls team if it wasn't for the fact that my daughter was in them. I was like, look, I'm gonna be going there. I'm going to be taking you every week to the training and to all that sort of stuff. So I might as well help out and I might as well get involved. But I think that is the hardest thing to balance, is that sense of you want the best for your child. And as a parent, you instantly think you know what the best for your child is, whether that's because something went well in your life or because the opposite. You have a negative experience and you want to usher your child away from that. You just have these opinions, most of the time you're right as well, about what will lead to your kids flourishing. And so you end up it's just natural that you end up going, right, well, I think you should do this. And it really jumped out at me that Ian said, not just with football, but with faith as well, with Wes. He said, look, I didn't push him. This was his thing. It had to be his thing. And he made it his thing.
And I guess there's added elements here that, and we've spoken about this before, but the struggles that we went through at that age are very different to the struggles that your children or young people these days go through. So there's almost that barrier of, maybe what I did won't work for you. I think we should talk about disappointment as well. Ian touched on it then, that when Wes got turned away from an academy or when he faced issues and disappointment, it's really hard for him not to say, it'll be okay because another club will come in. How do you balance that with your daughter? If there's a disappointment, whether that is with football, whether it's with something else at school, it must be really hard to not say, don't worry, because things will get better, when you don't explicitly know what that's going to be.
It's more about just sitting with them in the disappointment. I'm a dad of 2 girls, so I'm very nervous about the first heartbreak when that comes in. That'll be a thing, and sometimes you can't just say this'll be okay, it'll all be fine, give it a day, give it a week, whatever. You just have to sit with them in the disappointment, and you have to teach them how to crucially how to sit with God in that as well. And I think that was the lovely thing, coming back to the chat with Ian and Wes. This season, for example, at Milwall, he's been predominantly on the bench, and he's getting bits of game time here and there, but probably not playing as much as he would like. And actually his faith is one of those things that helps him overcome that disappointment. It's not to say that the disappointment goes immediately, but that he has somebody to sit with in that disappointment, and that's God, and he's the best person to sit with in those moments.
I think there's something really powerful when you're journeying disappointment with someone, whether that is a younger person, whether it's your child, whether it's a friend. There's something really powerful about actually acknowledging this is really hard. Do you feel like journeying disappointment with your daughter around this can help your faith as well?
Yeah, massively. To be honest, raising my kids has been the greatest thing for my faith, because what I see when I look at my young children is I see a little bit of how God sees me. And actually, whether it be, a career later in life or a relationship, actually, to God, it's sort of, he does care, but it doesn't matter. The specifics don't really matter. He just wants the relationship with us. He wants to sit with us and embrace us. And that's the most important thing. And so I'm sort of just really keen that with my kids, I'm just sort of encouraging that thing of, I want my kids to come to me with their worries. I want them to come to me with their concerns, with their joys as well. And if they do that, it doesn't matter what those concerns are. It doesn't matter what those worries are, what those problems are. I'm just so glad they've come to me with them, and we can get through it, and we'll be able to walk through this together. And I think that's how Jesus approaches us. He just wants us to take our struggles, our problems to him, and he goes, thank you for bringing that to me.
We've spoken a lot there about disappointment, but obviously there's a lot of joy in this. There's a lot of joy for you seeing your daughter play football. When she scores a goal or puts in a crunching tackle on their star winger, it must be a really proud moment as well. And being able to celebrate that with your daughter is just as important as sitting in the bad times.
Yeah, definitely. We have this sort of little ritual after every training session where we sit in the car, just me and her, and on the way home, and I I give her feedback on how she's played. Now, listen, what I always
Get
say...
the iPad out.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. The Opta stats, you know.
Like hammering with his little magnets.
Yeah, that's me. But then I always bring it round to what I'm very proud of her doing. And it's often to do with work ethic. She just doesn't stop running. She's one of those, midfield engines. And that's the thing that makes me proudest, is actually seeing her effort, because I know, like, I was quite a lazy kid. So when I was her age, I was definitely not putting in that kind of running. And so it's lovely. I think, our faith is about that as well. It's about taking moments, whether you've bought a new house and you pop in the champagne, or, celebrating a wedding and it's a week-long feast, or whatever it is. It's really important that we celebrate the good moments in our lives, the good work that we've done, but most importantly, the good work that God's done in us through it.
Ed, before we finish, shall we come back to our quiz question?
I think we should. I'm excited about this one because it's multiple choice.
Multiple choice is a lot easier and less prone to embarrassment.
Yes.
Which of these Bible ballers has more Champions League goals? Joshua Kimmich or Jude Bellingham?
Right, so I think you've gone for the old double bluff here. I think you want me to think Joshua Kimmich.
I wouldn't focus on what I want you to think.
No, that's exactly what I'm doing.
I think you're
I'm sucked into the trap here.
Psychological.
And so my first gut instinct was Jude Bellingham, and that's what I'm going to go with. I think Jude Bellingham has scored more Champions League goals than Joshua Kimmich.
Okay. Well, I can tell you, Joshua Kimmich has 12 Champions League goals across his career. Jude Bellingham has 13.
Yes,
Very
come
good,
on.
Ed. Well done. You got the multiple choice 50-50 question correct. I think that is all we have time for, Ed.
It is all we've got time for, Joe. Thank you so much for listening to The Big Man Up Top.
You're welcome.
If you, not you, Joe, the listener. If you want to get in touch with the show, like Ian, the Crystal Palace fan, did earlier, please ping us an email to podcast@ucb.co.uk, and also make sure you check out our YouTube community. That's where we're getting engagement, we're getting comments, all that lovely stuff. Come and join in the conversation. That is youtube.com/@BigManUpTopPod. Please follow, subscribe, give us all the good reviews, that sort of thing. If you've enjoyed this, make sure you tell your friends. A huge thank you to our producer Anthony for all the hard work behind the scenes, and there'll be a new episode next Tuesday.
Farewell, see you then.
See you later.